Hey everybody, this is my 55-gallon T-bar tank, and a few days ago I put some Wonder Shells in this tank. Now they're a product that is supposed to remineralize your water, add calcium, add other mineral ions. It's even supposed to be a dechlorinator and a water treatment. It's sold as doing a lot of things in the tank. It's also sold as not having any effect on your water hardness or shifting your pH or anything like that. So I got some, I put them in the tank. I've got some snails in this tank, and I've got very low calcium levels in my water, very, very soft water. And having the snails in there, it's just not good for their shells to have such soft water. So I added these Wonder Shells, and here we are. Today is the third day. If you can see that little white thing back there, it's not showing up too well if I can get the camera angle just right. It's a little tiny. There we go. There's a little look at it. If you saw the video from the other day, and I'll attach a card right here, so if you didn't see that video and you want to go check it out, if you're not familiar with what the Wonder Shells look like, that is after a mere 3 days of being in the tank, and it hasn't even been a full 3 days. It won't be a full 3 days until about 9 o'clock tonight. So I'm not really sure what to make of that. I did check the pH. The pH is exactly the same as it was a few days ago. I never did a base level hardness test, so there's no point in doing a hardness test now, so I wouldn't know whether it shifted or not. And frankly, the 3 small shells that I put in there, I can't imagine they would have shifted the water hardness that much. And considering the pH didn't shift at all, I'm not too worried about that sort of thing. My concern is the fact that regardless of whether that did its thing or not, it's gone in a matter of just a few days. Now, the idea might be that it's dissolved into the tank, and now this water has been remineralized and everything's fine. So the next time I do a big water change, I'll put a couple more in there. But I don't, I'm not the kind of person that does additives during water changes and things like that. It's not that I have any principle against it. I just never stay on top of it. I forget to order more. I run out. It's a pain in the butt. It costs money to keep doing, I'm not going to add stuff every water change. It's bad enough. I got to add filter floss and all that and change my filters out. So I just don't do the additives. That's why none of my tanks have foods or ferts. I don't put plant tabs in. I don't do anything. So the Wonder, shells, I was kind of hoping could just go in the tank, and maybe if it was something that from time to time, every few months, I might have to replace them. All right, I could do that. But something like this, that every water change, I'm going to have to chuck a couple of more in the tank just to make sure they keep doing their thing properly. That's not really something I'm worried about doing. So I might try to find some darker crushed coral or something like that, and just mix some in the tank and just mix it in with the substrate. I don't need a ton of it. I don't want my water to be hardened. So I'm guessing that putting some crushed coral in there will, give me a little bit of hardness. It'll certainly add some mineral ions to the water without really jacking it up. It won't be the same as having a complete, substrate full of crushed coral. I also want to talk at some point about the algae that I've got growing on the front of this glass. I'm not sure whether it's getting worse or it's clearing away, but I did put a new LED on this tank recently, and if you use a low quality LED, you can run the risk of really jacking up your algal growth in a tank. And I do want to talk about that in an upcoming video, where I'm going to talk a little bit more about how LEDs work and why low budget LEDs will actually increase your algal growth even if they do keep your plants alive, and why you see some LEDs that are for planted tanks and some that are just for show tanks as long as you don't have any plants in them, and so on and so forth. So we're going to have a little bit of discussion about that. That'll be in my aquarium lighting playlist. And otherwise, I can't think of anything else to update on this tank. But while I've got you here, and while he's out, we're going to pop over to this tank and have a look at my Striped Raphael again. He does not come out terribly often, but it seems like he comes out in waves. I've seen him almost every feeding for the last, I don't know, week. Seems like he comes out regularly, and then it'll be months where he just doesn't come out at all. So I did, I have adjusted by putting the food down at the far end of the tank. I used to do that most of the time, but not always. I would quite often just put it at this end of the tank, and whenever the food goes in this end of the tank, the prevailing currents in the tank would always sort of drift the food right into his cave, and he never really ever had to come out of his cave. The food would just sort of go to him. So now that I've been putting it down here, maybe we're more likely to see him coming out and swimming around. But again, it just seems odd because I used to put it down here frequently enough and he never came out when I did it then. Maybe if I just do it consistently, maybe if I always put it down that end, it'll force him to come out. So I guess from now on we're going to start putting it down that other end, because that Striped Raphael really is a cool fish, and having him come out more is certainly better. So make sure you're subscribed. That way you won't miss anything. You never know what it's going to be with me. I try to shoot anything that's on my mind. If I catch anything that's interesting or I think is something I would like to see, I certainly try to get it on video so that I can share it with everybody else. And if you're subscribed, you won't miss that. Don't forget, the first tank we looked at was my T-bar tank. This tank here is my Gourami tank. Thanks for watching. I'll see you real soon in the next one.